Hey, I'm Parker, and welcome back to Tech Talk Tuesday. Today, we're going to be covering sensitive data exposure. It's going to be part of our virus mini-series covering cybersecurity and how to help mitigate against potential security vulnerabilities. We're going to be covering 3 ways in which you can do this, but as always, this list is non-exhaustive, so we strongly recommend you do your own research. Therefore, we have linked the relevant OWASP article as we have done in the past. So what is sensitive data exposure? It's effectively where you have some information and you don't want it exposed, but somehow something gains access to that information. Hence, sensitive data exposure. Tip 1, encryption. In the worst case scenario, your data gets stolen in plain text. You might be thinking to yourself, fine, let's just encrypt it. And that's exactly what you should be doing, but you might not be considering all situations. Specifically, let's say you've got your server and your data is stored here and it's encrypted and you want to send it to somewhere else and you want that somewhere else to be able to read it. Therefore, you decrypt it and you send it over. You might see where I'm going with this, which is that if something steals that data when it's being sent or when it's in transit, they can still get it in plain text. So you want to be considering it when it's in transit as well as when it's being stored or when it's at rest. Encrypt both. Secondly, cryptography is hard, so leave it up to the cryptographers. I strongly recommend using a reputable, up-to-date, third-party library, API, service, or whatever else. Moving on to tip 2, which is actually managing the data. You want to start to consider how sensitive the data is. An exercise that I like to put myself through is pretending like all data is life-threatening to my users. I know this is pretty extreme, but it helps to push the boundaries of some odd hypothetical situation that you may have never thought of, or alternatively, the question we've all asked ourselves, what's the worst that could happen? Secondly, start to consider if you even have to store the data. In the words of the linked OWASP article, data that is not retained cannot be stolen. And third is less of a cybersecurity tip and more along the lines of design and architecture. But I thought it was a really unique way to evaluate things, and therefore I'm including it. It was to ask yourself the question, if something were to change, how quickly can I update my ciphers or encryption keys or overall infrastructure to adapt to that change? For instance, let's say your encryption key gets leaked, or in a more realistic scenario, in a different scenario, your cipher gets broken. How quickly can you update your code to respond to that break? I really like this because it both begs the question of how well your code is structured, as well as how quickly you can respond to a potential vulnerability. Will a quick fix be a quick fix, or will it break everything? So those are 3 ways in which you can help to protect yourself against sensitive data exposure, but as always, do your own research. And to recap, 1, encryption, 2, managing the data, and 3, considering the design and architecture of your code and how quickly you can adapt it. As always, thanks for tuning in. I'm Parker, and this was Tech Talk Tuesday.